This is the Liberty Blue Rangers Podcast. With Andrew Chelney and Nick Zararis.
Rangers fans, welcome to the best Rangers podcast in town. I'm Andrew Chelney alongside Nick Zararis, and we are Liberty Blue. We scream about the Rangers so that you can save your voice. That's how deeply we care about you, and we appreciate that you've joined us for the ride. This is episode 33, live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. We'll put the full video up on our YouTube, Liberty Blue Podcast, and the audio version will be available as an audio podcast as well. Recording just slightly earlier than we normally do today, but unless Christopher does something crazy within the next, I'd say 3 hours, because we're recording slightly after 3 p.m., hopefully everything we say will still be up to date. Search Liberty Blue on your favorite podcast platform, and it should be there. Give the show that shiny and illustrious 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. It helps us show more than you think it does. At Liberty Blue Pod on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Chelney Andrew, Chelney Andrew, alongside Nick Zararis, Nick Zararis. Those are our personal Twitter handles to follow as well. Nick, the Rangers can never get out of their own way, can they?
Well, when your entire public relations strategy is centered around silence intentionally, so no one can ever be held accountable because there's nobody on record ever saying anything, it's really easy for these things to go away. It is Monday now, and Twitter accounts tweeting like normal. The team's social channels went about their weekend like anything else. Players are on All-Star break now. The guys who are going to go to Florida for the game this upcoming weekend will go, and that's it. But you and I have talked about this extensively, about what the team values, who it tries to market itself towards, and what their actions tell us. The Rangers are a civic institution. They are part of the city. They take advantage of some of the benefits you get from that. You get tax benefits. You get liquor license benefits. One of the things James Dolan was talking about last week. You get these benefits by being part of the city. You get things that other businesses and corporations aren't able to get because of your status as part of that. The entire point of sports is the civic interest, the community interest. The root basis of sports is our city is better than your city because we live in this city, and our team is better than your team because we live in this city. The entire point of sports is to bring people together. And when a team advertises things to target to specific segments of the community, where you do Hispanic heritage, you do Black History Month, you do the LGBTQ community, you do law enforcement, you do the fire department, all of these are part of the community. And choosing one group to single out, which is what happened on Friday, and saying, well, all the other groups, we do this, but for you guys, we're doing this because we believe everybody should be able to voice their own opinion, is the way I think it was phrased in that really bad word salad that they put out.
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah,
it was just not a good look.
Yeah. And it was a non-statement. It was essentially a non-statement.
Yeah, it was word salad. That's what it was. It was all of the keywords that you have to say without actually having any meaning behind them. And it brings a very simple, straightforward question. This is a corporation that is asking for you to give it your money. You are a customer. Sports are, at the end of the day, a business. They are very specific in who they want to target their product towards. This is not a cheap product. The get-in price face value of tickets most nights is $85 to $90. That is face value. That is not what you can actually get a ticket for on the secondary market.
To sit in the bleachers, by the way.
Yes.
Like, not even decent seats.
400s,
yeah.
To not be able to see the scoreboard, to not be able to see the far end of the ice, to not be able to see below the own goal line. To get in, it is $85. Right out of the gate, you're pricing a lot of people out. The companies you have sponsorship agreements with are mostly luxury brands. The branded stuff you have in the garden, the sushi bar, the things like that are targeted towards a very specific clientele. The Rangers have told you indirectly for quite a while that even though this is a blue-collar sport and supposedly a blue-collar team, this is a luxury good. You buy a ticket, you might be in the same row as this celebrity who was in that movie on that TV show. That is the marketing ploy the Rangers are using, that this is a luxury good, that it is expensive, and it is a status symbol to go. In doing that, they are effectively ruling a certain sect of the public out intentionally.
Do the Rangers really market this as a blue-collar team? And the reason why I asked that is because hockey is, by definition, the most expensive sport of all the major sports to exist. Like, you can go to a court with a basketball. As long as there's a hoop there, you can make stuff happen. Same thing with soccer. All you need is a ball and a net, and you're good to go. Maybe shoes, but you should probably have shoes. But with hockey, you got to put thousands of dollars into equipment to play. It's even if you're buying used stuff, that's still not cheap to buy. And if you have a young son, daughter, whoever that's playing, you constantly need to buy new equipment. So that is more money spent on the sport. So hockey, I get the idea that
this is one of the fascinating trends of the last couple of years is the way things that are associated with the working class, like pickup trucks, Carhartt branded clothing, that stuff is a type of tradition. That these are associated with these type of things. 15 years. I don't know what the right word I want to use. Fetishization of that blue collar aesthetic, that inherently people are blue collar are better or more valuable than other types of people who do other types of work. And that's why you've seen a conscientious approach to co-opt the language of the working class in other spaces where that wouldn't typically be associated. Like a lot of this is rooted in the history of hockey. Like I read a book a couple of years ago rooted in kind of where that the violent identity of hockey, where fighting and the physical nature of the game come into play. Because originally hockey was a sport for rich people. And then the poorer people were able to get into the sport back, and I'm talking like 100 years ago, not like in the last 50 years. 100 years ago, the game was rooted in poor people, because originally poor people were playing lacrosse in Canada, especially.
Yeah.
This is where the book was about. And lacrosse became a sport of the elite where they were able to weed out the poor and working class people. Hockey took those people in, and part of that identity of being a blue collar worker was being able to fight, was being physical, was having a presence. And that has stayed with the sport, even though, of course, these are multimillionaires in the highest tax bracket in both countries playing the sport. But the blue collar identity is still something seeped in. It's why they use the construction workers in the commercials on MSG Network with the stickers and the Rangers helmets. It's why that hashtag was no quit in New York and play like a New Yorker. All of these things are branded to appeal to people who are the suburban people who live in a nice development, who have the idea of this is what these types of people look like who do this type of thing. And yes, this is a little simplistic. There are outliers in every but speaking purely from a marketing perspective of who they are trying to appeal to, you are trying to appeal to upper class rich people who can afford this luxury good, which is what hockey has become in New York for the Rangers.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially with the ticket prices are at an all-time high, and they climb every single year. And as you said, it's $85 just to get into the bleachers and the nosebleeds, where you can't see the scoreboard, or you can't see half the ice either. Like you react essentially based on how other people react. Like you are seeing some of the action, but not a whole lot. And if you do, you probably need binoculars to see what's going on down there. And the sport is very expensive as is, even with hand-me-downs. Even if you're buying used stuff, it's still hundreds of, especially if you're a goalie. All those pads are so expensive, and I know because I played goalie, not for a long time. I mean, I'm here for a good time and a long time, but I did play goalie for a little bit, and those things are really expensive. So when you have a game that is inherently, supposedly, we're getting down to the nitty gritty and we're working hard, and that's what the middle class does, and all these things, but your ticket prices are really high, everything is really expensive, and not a whole lot of people can afford to watch you play, but also play the sport that you play. So you're essentially, like you said, that's why you see a lot of these commercials during the game is Lexus and Mercedes and all of these brands that have very luxurious cars that you can spend $70,000 on a brand new car. Like all these ads that are like, 0 money down or whatever, but in the fine print they're like, oh yeah, this car costs $130,000. Like this is who they're targeting. And for better or for worse, like that's maybe it's a little bit different in other cities because we're in New York, and New York is very expensive, as everybody knows. But that is the fact of the matter, is that the Rangers are advertising this sport and this team essentially to rich people, despite having the hard hats and all these things in the ads, and they'd like to pretend that the average person can afford these tickets, even though everybody knows that average people can't. Like, these tickets are really expensive.
And the reason we're talking about this from this perspective is the entire point of sports is to be with other people. The best part of sports, what people always say, that the way people react when something incredible happens, when the crowd just goes absolutely nuts, that is what makes the NHL playoffs so unique and so special. It's just that energy you feel, that buzz. And that comes from collectivism. That comes from having 17, 18,000 people in a condensed space, everybody squeezing their thigh so hard that the color is leaving their leg, that their leg is pale from squeezing the blood out of their leg, how stressed out they are watching this. The people who are yelling at the TV in their living room. That is what sport is about collectivism and being with other people. That is the problem with what happened on Friday, is in ruling out a sect of the people and giving them the token, well, we're not going to do that, but we'll still acknowledge this person, we'll acknowledge that person. That's when it feels like it's tokenism, when it's just doing it because you have to, not because you actually want to have these people involved in your community. That's what's frustrating for me, especially for Andrew as well. The whole point of this is community, is meeting new people and getting to share the same chaotic misery that we all feel watching the Rangers play hockey. It is supposed to be a shared experience. That is what makes sports fun, is having the ability to share it with other people, to talk about it with other people. And the opportunities that we've been able to have in sports because of where we are and who we are, that only happens because we have been able to meet other people. And for people to not have that same opportunity to meet other people, to find a place in the community, it's really disheartening, because we've experienced the good part of it, and in our minds, we feel everybody should be able to feel welcome and included and be able to join what makes this so fun. That's what this is about. That's why we're harping on this 3 days after the fact. It matters that people feel welcome here.
Well, that, yes. And also, the jersey is sold. The money that they get is donated to charities that need the money, right? Yeah. So on top of just removing the jerseys for, we don't know why, the Rangers put out that complete non-statement, they also kind of put the middle finger to these charities that help at-risk people in those communities get out of situations, and there's a whole laundry list of things that these charities do. But maybe, and again, we don't really know because the Rangers don't say anything about this, is that maybe the Rangers just gave him a lump sum. I don't know. That's kind of my best hope, that the Rangers were like, we're not going to don these jerseys, but we're going to give you the money anyway. Maybe they did that, probably not, but that's kind of what I'm hoping. That's kind of like the best case scenario of the situation now, is like, okay, they did that, but maybe they were like, here's the money anyway. I don't know. I'm guessing here, but that's the hope and the dream for this organization to do. So when you do that, and you come out with this non-statement of like, oh, we respect everybody, yada yada. Okay, but a lot of people hide behind the fact that, what my belief is basically defends my right to go against this, right? To go against this whole situation. Okay, so what if tomorrow there's a new religion that comes out that says my deity, whatever, doesn't like law enforcement night? What if that happens? Just as an example, right? That, like, I'm not, this is just a thought experiment. What if tomorrow there's a religion that comes out and a group of people start following this religion, and one of the things that is in this book is that, you don't respect law enforcement. You just don't. And you hate all law enforcement, like as an example, right? Do the Rangers now come out with a statement and say, we're not going to wear the jerseys and everybody's allowed to respect what they respect and believe what they believe in? The answer is going to be no, right? So it's a very complicated and just ridiculous thing for the Rangers to do, to single out this particular group and say, hey, every other night is going to be fine, but because this one is a hot button issue for some reason, we're going to handle this completely differently, and then also not say anything about it to any of the players and nothing to the media. And if you say something to us on Twitter, we're going to block you. It doesn't make any sense.
It's very giving in to the elements you don't want involved. That's the thing here. At the end of the day, the entire point of these type of events is to get people who might not typically be interested in hockey, invested in hockey. That, well, maybe I haven't had any experience or don't have a relationship with hockey, but they're making an attempt to engage with a community I am a part of. That at the ground level is the point of events like this, is to expose people who aren't familiar with hockey to the game. And when you do things like that, like what they did on Friday, you're telling them they matter less effectively. That defeats the entire purpose of this. Like, yes, at the end of the day, this is a corporation doing a sponsored event. Like, I think Delta was the sponsor of Pride Night. Yeah, this is a corporation taking money from another company to sponsor an event. But at some level, you do got to do stuff you believe in, which is inherently the problem, because this might be the organization's stance on this, and that is a problem.
Well, that, and also we kind of know the players are totally on board with wearing the jerseys, because when they did it in the past, you have Trouba and Shesterkin and Zibanejad and Panarin, like they all wore these jerseys in the past. So it's not as if a player just randomly decided to, somebody big on the Rangers team decided that we're not going to do this. They did it in the past, and they had no idea they were going to wear it. Everybody's thought process going into that game for the players was that they were going to don the jerseys and the tape and all these things in warm-up to then be auctioned off and to donate that money to the charities. None of that happened. And they were surprised by it. The fans were surprised by it. And the Rangers organization as a whole afterwards were like, here's this word salad of words in the English dictionary, and if you disagree with our word salad, we'll just block you. And that, in and of itself, is the biggest problem here, is like, okay, well, you did this, which, huge red flag also, but not only did you do that, you didn't tell the players, you didn't tell the coaching staff, you told I would imagine the equipment manager, like, as a maybe like 10 seconds before you guys the team was going to go on the ice, said, hey, actually put those away. We're just go out in the Liberty Blue jerseys and have fun. You told nobody, and when pushed back on it, expectedly so, because you did something very strangely and kind of out of the blue, you choose to block people on Twitter, and you choose to not answer the media. You choose to pretend that this whole thing didn't happen. What was the point of this then? Why do this if you're just gonna do something ridiculous like this?
And you take away from what would have been a good night.
Exactly.
They won on Friday night. They played pretty well, and instead, not talking about the game. Which, again, the entire point of these events is to get people invested in hockey that aren't typically invested in hockey.
And this is how
we're not talking about hockey.
Yeah. Well, and this is a. If everything just went as planned, it would have been just another night. It would have been just another, night with a little bit something special in the pregame, and then they skate around, they do their laps, and they auction the stuff off to charity. They have the national anthem, all these things. That's it. Game on. Rangers play. They played well. They won. That's it. And we just sit here and talk about the games. It's not as if this night was going to change the world. No, that's not what this is for. This was, to like you said, to bring in those marginalized people, to donate some money to charity, and that's it. That's the whole point of the event. So to do this out of the blue, without telling the players they're going to do this, and then be shocked and angry that people are questioning your decision to do that, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, they promoted the jerseys on social media throughout the week leading up to Friday. Like, oh, don't forget, come on Friday, see the jerseys in person. And yeah. All right, we'll talk real quick. They're pretty good on Friday against Vegas. No complaints in that game. They took advantage of a situation. Vegas hasn't been great. They've been kind of muddled in a weird spot since the new year. They're under 500 since the new year. They're a little bit dinged up. Jack Eichel's dealing with something. Mark Stone still isn't back for them. But nothing to complain about there. That's all you need from that kind of game.
I mean, Halak's only goal was that really bad one that he gave up at I think it was the end of the second period, which should never have first of all, that shot never has to go anyway, but call the penalty maybe? Because that Lafreniere trip was such an egregious call. Like, it wasn't even a 50-50 call. That's a penalty 100 out of 100 times. So that's got to be called. That puck, I mean, listen, like, obviously Halak should have had that. That was just a silly goal to give up in that period. It's at any point in time, really, but especially in that situation. Hey, stop that shot. That is one of the most stoppable shots you will ever have as a goaltender in the NHL. You should have that shot every single time, and that should never go in the net. But that should have been a call. But otherwise, Halak played very well, and he deserves credit because he started off the season miserably. He could not stop a beach ball. And he had flashes of that, especially on front with that one goal that gave up. But he had some massive saves in there as well. There was one cross crease pass that he lunged at, and he got a piece of it, and that it didn't go in the net, and it was great. And he played very well. So we have to give credit to Jaro Halak, who bounced back. Like, I think, he's won a few games in a row. He's looked so much better than he has earlier in the season. Jaro Halak is really starting to emerge as a dependable backup, and maybe we will see him more often come maybe second half of February, in March, and in April. If Halak continues to play like this, which by all accounts he has shown that he can, then I feel like Shesterkin will be played a little bit less as the playoff aspirations and contention spot for the Rangers kind of solidifies more and more. We'll see Halak play maybe twice or 3 times in a couple of weeks as opposed to 1 or 2. And Halak definitely deserves credit. And the Rangers also deserve credit. Like we said last week, the Rangers should get 4 points from these 3 games. And they got 5. They should have gone 6. They should have beaten Toronto in regulation. But like at the end of the day, despite them not really playing well at times, they continue to collect points. They continue to rack up wins, and that also deserves I almost said credit and praise at the same time to create the word craze. Credit and praise.
Yeah, no, a solid week. They took care of business against Florida on Monday. Yes, they got to beat up on a backup goalie, which helps. That's always good for confidence, especially for a team that had been struggling offensively the last couple of weeks. Always good to beat up on a backup goalie. The Toronto game, it's the microcosm. They play really well for stretches. They don't play consistently well for an entire game ever. I don't think they've yet to do that this year, played a great game for a full 60 minutes. Toronto's a really good team. You can get away with that against most teams, but Toronto's too good. I mean, the Marner goal, that's one of like the 5-6 players in the entire world who can make that move and score that goal in overtime. Like, K'Andre Miller was absolutely stupefied that he went around Zibanejad and Panarin. Like, that's why K'Andre was so out of position and flat-footed. He just assumed Zibanejad or Panarin would have been able to knock the puck off of him or made him change his direction. And that's why he was so out of position there on that goal. But Toronto's a really good team. At the end of the day, 5 out of 6 points, that's a good week.
Yeah.
You keep rattling off 5 out of every 6 points. You have a good chance of catching the Devils for the second spot in the division. But more than likely, you're going to be playing the Devils in the first round, barring something weird. At least at this point in the season, that's what it looks like.
I mean, the top line against Toronto did not play well. They did not play well. And again, like, it's... I don't want to complain too much because the Rangers did get 5 out of 6 points and all these things, but the kid line in Toronto was
They were the best line.
They were the best line by 1.5 miles. Like, even those that hate on the kids and they want them traded for 3 Sammy Blaze and all these things, like, you have to sit back and when you watch that game and you realize that kid line dominated every other Rangers line for the entire game. Like, they were very obviously the best line for the team in that game, and the top line played miserably. They could not get anything going offensively, defensively. Like, they just had a bad game. But instead of putting the kid line back out there, especially in the overtime, Jargalat was like, hey, I'm going to put the guys that I know to be the best players on any given night, despite them not playing well in Toronto. They had just a miserable game. And, I mean, Mitch Marner. Listen, like, that goal... Like you said, there's not a whole lot of people on the planet that can score that kind of goal, and Mitch Marner can, but it just goes to show the lack of trust that Gallant has for anybody that he doesn't have complete and utter faith in. Like, the kid line was the best line on the ice. They didn't see a whole lot of ice time in the back half of the third period, and They didn't get put out there on the 3-on-3 despite being the best line for them that night, and Gerard Gallant just continued to stick with his guns, and he got burned.
Yeah, they got, I think, one shift in the last they got 1 40-second shift in the last 5 minutes of the game. The one critique I would say, and like I get not wanting to put the kids out there to start overtime. At the same time, Zibanejad, Kreider, Panarin, those guys have been on the ice a lot in that last 5 minutes. Not even from like a trust perspective, but like these guys are exhausted. They've been on the ice 3 of the last 5 minutes of this game. Maybe, but it's whatever. There's no need to complain. It's over. That's not
the biggest story. Obviously, the Friday debacle is front and center here, but it just that's a highlight of Gerard Gallant in a nutshell. Of just like he will do what he thinks is best, regardless of if it's the best thing to do or not. And if you disagree with him, he'll just give you a snarky answer in return. But I mean, hey, we asked for 4 points from this week. This was going to be a very tough week for this team, and Florida was coming in red hot. They're desperate for points. Toronto is one of the best teams in the league. Vegas is also still one of the best teams, even though they are struggling a little bit. They have injury concerns, all these things. Like, they're still a really good team, and the Rangers, from these 3 tough games, got 5 out of 6 points. Should have had 6. 5 is really solid still. And there's in terms of all the weeks that they've had, like points wise, it was great. But again, they just can't get out of their own way, and they decided to make something that shouldn't have been a huge deal a big deal. And now here we are on January 30th, 3 days after what happened, and we're still talking about it. And which They wanted to make this go away by not talking about it and by giving out a non-statement, but it backfired because everything, like all that we've talked about and all that Twitter's been talking about the last 3 days, is why did they do this? Like this doesn't make any sense, and this is a bad look for them.
Yeah, it's an unforced error. It's just an unforced error. They had the week off. All-Star game on Saturday. I will surely watch 5 minutes of the All-Star game on Sunday. I'll probably watch a little bit of the skill stuff on Saturday, purely for the novelty, because I think they have an event like on the beach or something with like golf clubs where like they're chipping and then they have to shoot hockey pucks. I'll watch that for the novelty because it'll be it'll be stupid and mildly entertaining, and there's nothing else on a Saturday this time of year. So I'll check in, and then next Monday we'll see you guys. I think they play Calgary next Monday.
Yeah.
It'll start the second half of the season against the Flames, and we'll take it from there.
Who is the All-Star game for? Because it's not for the hardcore.
It's for the whole city. That's it.
It's for the city. Yeah. That's a good point.
That's really all it's for. Because they've been putting it in the non-traditional markets the last couple of years. So you get the tourist ploy. They've promised it to the smaller market teams. Like they gave it to, what's it called? They've given it to the expansion teams a couple times now. They've given it to Florida a couple times. The thing you have to balance is you actually have to make your All-Star game somewhere people want to go.
Right.
Which is the problem that the NFL has run into with the Pro Bowl, where they did it in Hawaii forever, and then it was a lot cheaper to play it in Orlando. And everybody's like, I don't want to go to Orlando. We used to go to Hawaii for free. Now we're going to Florida for free. Like now they're putting it in Vegas, which, okay, you can get people to go to Vegas for a weekend for free. Sunrise, Florida, sure. It'll be good. You get to highlight the team. You get to highlight Matthew Tkachuk. You get to highlight a non-traditional market that has kind of gotten out of that lower tier of team and firmly into the middle class of the NHL. You highlight a franchise that's kind of done it the right way. That should be the goal of the All-Star game here. They don't need to put it in New York. They don't need to put it. You know what? I know they had asked Gary Bettman a couple weeks ago about putting it on Long Island at UBS because that's one of the new arenas. Yeah, sure, do that. I don't really care. The All-Star game it's more for the city that's getting to host it than anybody else. The game itself, nobody cares.
No. Well, the Florida was doing the right thing until they did the wrong thing with Andrew Burnett and hired a guy in Paul Maurice, and now they are a team in the NHL. That's for sure. They are there for. They play hockey. That's about the thing that I could say about the Florida Panthers is that like they hired a guy to coach for some reason and they let go of a better one. And here they are, playing hockey in the NHL. Look at them go.
All right. That'll do it for this week's show. Mercifully, we will see you guys next week. Make sure you are following along wherever you like to get your podcasts. We're on all the major platforms. If you like the video version, it should be up on YouTube sometime later tonight. Make sure you're following the show's socials on Instagram and Twitter, doing a lot of little things on there. And make sure you're following Andrew and I's personals. Andrew's is Chelney Andrew, Chelney Andrew. Mine is Nick Cararis, Nick Cararis. We will talk to you guys next week. Enjoy the All-Star break. Take a walk, touch grass, do the things you don't do when hockey's on.
That's right. Later.